I've made a ton of cars in my career, but truly none like this specific BMW M3. It is definitely up there with one of my favorite projects that we've ever done. So with this specific car, the owner was Lewis Warner. If you're on social media and you're in the Arizona area, I'm sure you already know who he is. He has a very nice and a very blue E92 BMW M3, and he's already gathered a lot of social media traction with regards to his specific car passion, and he used to have a Camaro in the past, yada yada yada. If you know him, you know him. If not, then I'm going to introduce him to you. He is a very eccentric individual, and he's definitely one of my good friends now. And he essentially just loves BMW and everything to do with racing and tracking. So when he approached us to create a custom livery for him, we were like, okay, we can definitely do that. And we had to take him through our standard design process. So the way that we work is that before beginning any design process, we have a discovery meeting with each and every one of our clients. For those of you guys who don't know what discovery is basically laying the foundations off of which we build a custom design project, so that we make sure that we nail each and every aspect of whatever the client wants. Yeah, so one part of discovery is the keywords process. So over here, we tell the client to think of 5 to 7 keywords that they think is in line with their specific car. And the ones over here in bold are the ones that he gave us. And I like to think that the words club sport, classic, bespoke, legacy, refined, these are all very, very, very strong keywords. And then from there, the ones that are not in bold, we extrapolated from the data that he gave us and from the long meetings that we had, and just check with him whether these keywords would also fit his vibe and niche, which they did. So yeah, so the keywords are there to essentially make sure that we understand exactly what the client wants and exactly what the client needs. Next up, what we do is that we take all the information that we've taken from the keywords and throughout the entire hour-long meeting that we've had with the client, and we go back and we create a mood board with specific to the client. So based on everything that we talked about, the BMW E92 M3 had to be front and center. And from what I remember, he was super into the whole Jägermeister look, the Jägermeister liveries. That is definitely something where we took inspiration from. And then he also told us that he loved those classic rally style like liveries from the 80s and the 90s. And I believe FCP Euro also made a Mercedes. I don't know exactly what model it is. Maybe it's a 190E. He loved the sand color and he loved how classic and retro and robust it looked. So that is something that we definitely kept in mind moving forward. Speaking of which, we also looked into popular 80s and 90s rally liveries of the past and seeing what sort of typography, what sort of design style that they had and everything like that. So all those things were like brewing in our head with regards to what Lewis would want on his livery. Because keep in mind, the conclusion that we came up with was that he wanted his car to be spiced up a little bit but not look like a complete race car, because his car is still essentially a street car and he wanted it to look like that as opposed to belong on the racetrack. So we had to walk on that fine line of having race car elements but also being a street car. Moving forward towards my favorite part of the design process, after Lewis approved each and every part of the mood board, we were like, okay, let's get to actually designing on the specific car. And keeping in mind that the BMW E92 M3 has very, very, very unconventional lines. Because the E36 has very straight and angry lines. The E46 is where they started to go a little bit curvy, but the E92, it just has curves all over. And I don't know if you know this, but designing a livery for a car with interesting curves is a lot harder than you might think. So we had to keep that in mind with regards to this specific design, but also we had to respect the natural lines of the car to make sure that the design sits perfectly with this specific car. I remember Lewis also told us that he loved the checkered designs that flow all across motorsports era, and he wanted us to include checkers in some way, shape or form. So that is also something that was at the back of my mind when I was designing for this specific car. So right off the bat, I noticed that the E92 M3 has a very, very interesting front fender, and the way that the headlights meet the front fender, that is one of the most interesting styling features from the side profile view of the car. So I wanted to specifically highlight that. So that is something that I did. And then as you can see where the parts were right on the fender, there's the badge which says M3 and all that. That is a styling opportunity where we could break up that specific line and continue it from the bottom up and just carry the same essence forward. So that is also another opportunity that I took to create something very interesting and very unique. For me personally, the rear arches of any sports car essentially are very, very important, and those arches need to be highlighted and those arches need to be given respect where it's due, because because the cars are wider at the back, they need more traction, they need more grip around the corners. So these purpose-built race cars are just that, they're wider and crazier at the back. So why not highlight that? So I made sure to make the lines flow from there. And then over here at the hood, I wanted it to just follow those natural curves that come from the pillars and just follow along those lines. With regards to the back, I didn't want to do too much because there were a lot of sponsor names that needed to be put onto the side of the vehicle and the front and the back. So those would be taking up most of the real estate on the front and rear bumper. But I also wanted to highlight the tail lights where the trunk meets the tail lights and just create the checkered pattern and make it flow right across to the rear. I believe overall, after going through a lot of different renditions and a lot of different experimentations over here, these are all the specific experiments we made with regards to the shapes and the geometry and everything that would be flowing across the car. Some were a hit, some were a fail, but overall, I think you will like the final design. Over here in the middle, we have all the sponsors that needed to be onto the car, all the logos that needed to be over there. So this was definitely front and center. And the different colors that we wanted to just like experiment with was like definitely blue and white had to be there. But maybe just adding a third color as an accent, lime green, was also a possibility. We did make an option for our client, keeping that color in mind, but the client just chose the minimal blue and white route. Overall, here is the final look of what we created for our client. I believe it hits each and every spot of what the client wanted. As you can see, the front fender is broken up from the M badge over here and it flows to the side. Front lights, just carrying the design forward to the back and just paying respect to this natural shoulder line over here. The rear arch over here, it carries that same checkered pattern that the client wanted, which was just a need of his because he just loved checkered patterns, I guess. And over here, moving towards the front and the rear, number 11 was definitely his racing number plate, so that also needed to be over here in the middle, and the front checkered pattern and also carrying it to the rear as well. I believe this is just one of those classy looks that is essentially timeless, and even if you show it to somebody, I say 10-15 years from now, I think it would hold its place in history as a really good design. So yeah, I want to know your thoughts down below with regards to the designs that we create and our design process as well. I want you to comment down below what was your favorite part of this design process and if there's anything that we can improve or make better. But overall, this was Lewis Warner's BMW E92 M3, and yeah, it was a blast to design. And Lewis, looking forward to working on way more projects with you. All right, thank you so much for watching. Peace, adios, goodbye.